are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm sharing experiences, true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And support is never expected but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. And there are many ways to support the show. You can share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platforms. You can sign up for the Patreon feed and get all the extra content there for as little as $1 a month. You can also check out the merchandise store and get all kinds of shirts and some other items there with designs made by friends of the show. And of course, there is the option to donate through PayPal as well. And please follow friends of the show. That would be Jen, the Arcane Observer, who joined as a co-host of the show on Saturdays whenever she's able to join me, and has her own channel as well. And then also Ricky of the Anything Is Possible podcast, who usually does a paranormal themed show on Sundays, which I join him for. And also Michael Strange, host of Trouble Minds Radio, and which I call into frequently, and the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows, as well as my own, online 24/7 for free. So we had plans for tonight. Those plans changed as far as the show topic goes, but I'm hoping you all will still enjoy it. And so yeah, I'm just going to be reading some true paranormal stories from the web here, like I said, and reacting to them, and go from there. We'll get through a dozen, and we'll see where we're at. And if I feel up to it, then I'll read another half dozen. That'll probably be the most I would do tonight. So let me get started here. This first one says, so this is probably really silly, but have you ever just lost an hour or two of your life in a span of seconds? It happened to me a few days ago. I was sitting by my laptop in the late evening. I just had a bath and was looking over bus routes to get something from a nearby town. I checked the time, and it was 9:25 p.m. Because I had to change the time on the bus app for the next day. That's a period there, okay. Because I had to change the time on the bus app for the next day. And I was joking to my friends over a chat how ridiculous it is for a bus to take 40 minutes to go to a town that's 5 miles away. I looked down at my phone because I had a social media notification. I checked it, raised my eyes back on my laptop, excuse me, and looked at the time again, and it was 11:55 p.m. And I'm still confused as to how that's possible. Everything I did couldn't have taken me longer than 3 minutes max, and that's where that one ends. It is really odd that, as far as, it's not like they were going to bed, it's not like they were getting up. I don't know what to make of that. Of course, for years, the first thing I would have said is possible alien abduction. However, and since I started looking into all these things, I have found examples of just weird time passages, weird time anomalies that don't seem to have any signs of any kind of alien abduction thing like you would hear in so many cases. And it's not that I'm doubting those cases. I'm just saying I think there's different things. I think those are one thing that happens to people, and I think these weird, I don't know, time slips, these time anomalies, are another thing that happens to people. And how that works, I don't know, but I have sort of a minor example of this, and I always bring up, which is that I used to walk to this restaurant in my town once a week to meet my family there for lunch. And the the time it took me to get there was always between 10 and 15 minutes. And it just depended on the traffic, if there was any traffic or whatever was going on. And this one time I walked there, and it only happened this one time. I went into some kind of trance or zone or something, zoned out as I was walking, which I never do, because I like to be aware. I'm legally blind. I have no depth perception. But it happened this time, and when I came out of it, I was almost to the restaurant, and everything was fine. And I didn't realize how weird it was at the time. But when I got in and I sat down, I looked at my clock thinking I probably got there just in time. Well, I had gotten there in 5 minutes. Not 10, not 15. 5 minutes. So I don't know what happened with time in that during that time where I was in that trance, and that's not even the same thing as what the person that made this post experienced. They didn't have any kind of weird, sort of altered state of consciousness. They just looked at the clock, looked down at their phone, and to check on something, looked at something on their phone, looked back up, and then 2 hours and 20 some minutes had passed. So I don't know. I really have no idea other than just time anomalies seem to be a thing that are not talked about a ton in the paranormal sense of things, from what I've found. Maybe only in recent years. But I think they are a thing that happens, and I think this is one example of that. And they fascinate me because it makes me wonder, is this just the nature of reality sort of slipping or malfunctioning for a brief, or in rare cases for people, or is there an intelligence behind it? And then, of course, the question behind that is why. Uh, so, and I don't know the answer to any of those questions. But whenever I find these kinds of accounts, I like to share them because I do think time anomalies happen to people. And I've shared a few others over the last few years in the show because of that. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, in 2014, I had a dream that lasted 12 years. The content of the dream was very normal. More normal, that's hard to say, than a dream usually is. Everything in the dream was something that could happen in real life. I went to college, got a different university, and am not married. The last thing I remember in my dream was I bought a small hayfield where I planned to build a house. The day was chilly and damp, probably October or November. There were no leaves on the trees. I was in the field with my wife and parents. My wife and I were telling them where we planned on putting the house. Then I woke up in 2014. This didn't feel like normally waking up. I jolted up like I had been startled, but nothing in the dream would have done that. I felt like I had been forced to a different time and place and had most of my memories of the past 12 years removed. For a solid minute, I sat in bed, confused. My memories of 2014 slowly came back to me. I then continued on as if this was a normal dream. But as time moved on, I think about this event more and more. Since 2014, I've noticed a lot more talk of timelines and alternate universes. People talk about being in the worst timeline, reality shifting, Harambe's death, making a new timeline, and we can't forget the Mandela effect phenomena. Much of this is in jest, but I can't help but wonder if other people had a similar experience. And that's where that one ends. And yet I can say I've heard of similar things where, yes, people have had similar experiences. Uh, it's really odd. Like a DMT trip? Okay, I don't know. I've never really looked into that. And hello, Matt Howell. But it's fascinating to think that. And hello, Mike. I see you there too. It's fascinating to think about that. What if it wasn't a regular dream? What if they had somehow, I don't know, their consciousness transferred to a different version of themselves? And they did literally experience that 12 years. That's a long time to experience in a dream. Uh, to me anyway, that just seems really fascinating that they felt like they lived that long. And now thinking of that, so if they lived through that much time in their dream, then obviously in that world they had to have slept. So what was happening while they were sleeping in the dream while they were sleeping here? Were they also dreaming there? It's these kinds of questions that come to mind when I hear of accounts like this, because we know that we dream even if we don't always remember the dreams. At least that's what I've heard anyway. So, were they having any dreams in within this what they felt like it was a dream? Uh, it's it's really fascinating to think of the implications of if they really were in some kind of other alternate universe, alternate timeline, and sleeping. Were they really sleeping here? Uh, yeah, a dream within a dream. I think that probably is a song somewhere. That's how. But anyway, just really fascinating that whole experience, and I wonder if the jolt that they mentioned when they woke up back here was that their consciousness sort of coming back into their body here. Was that some kind of that impact or that transition so fast that it startled them awake, startled their body awake, even where it just registered, oh, we're back, I'm back. And so a lot of questions there, a lot of sort of wild things to think about in that kind of experience where this person feels like they experienced 12 years of a lifetime and then and so and then woke back up again, and those 12 years had not passed here. So just a fascinating experience, and just raises all kinds of questions. So I really wanted to share that one because that's to me is just amazing, and I like how they point out it wasn't anything sort of paranormal or evil or even positive necessarily. It was ordinary, as if they were living their life, a regular life, in the dream experience. But like it wasn't a dream while they were in it. It just felt like normal life. There's just so many things that you do in life that, of course, they didn't mention in the post because it's just it's a post online. But sleeping, I mean, eating, um, just all kinds of things that you would do throughout the course of a regular existence that I'm guessing they would have experienced if they had gone through 12 years of time uh, in that other version of their life. Anyway, I think I'm going in circles with that one now, so let's move on to the next one. And let's see here. I'll look at the chat here real quick. Yeah, Mike, it could be also hello, Eric. But yeah, it could be a song. I feel like it is somewhere. I just don't. I'm not. Nothing is coming to mind. But who knows? Um, moving on to the next one here. It says my dad was home alone. He was sitting in the living room, watching TV, and suddenly he saw a tall figure that looked like my brother, but wearing a long black cape. The figure walked to my brother's room with no sound. My dad immediately stood up and rushed to my brother's room. No one was even there. My dad said that the room felt like someone was there, but no one was. To be clear, my brother is outside the country. He has been there for 6 years. What do you all think? Is this paranormal? So, sounds like the dad saw a shadow figure, and maybe it was still in the room when the dad went in there. Is that what they were picking up on? I'm wondering. Um, it's always hard to tell because how do we know when you sense a presence that it's the same thing that maybe you see before or after? Unless you get a sense of that from what you see as well. So I'm not sure. I wonder, and this would probably be just an off chance, but I'm wondering where the brother was at. Would he have been in an area where, due to environmental conditions, would he have worn something that would look like a cape? In other words, was that the brother sort of thinking about his room and maybe projecting there? Or was it a completely different entity? Again, I have no answers, just questions and possibilities there. Moving on to the next one. This one says, I have never posted anything before. I only speak Spanish, so if there are any mistakes, it's because of the translator. I need to share this because what happened to my husband and I has left me completely confused. My husband and I live in Toledo, Spain, but my husband is from another area, so all his family lives there. One day, we had to go to see them. We spent the day there, and everything was great, but on the way back, it got dark. We were driving on a two-way road, and normally you turn off your high beams when another car is coming from the opposite direction, because you'll dazzle the other driver. Well, half of the drive was normal, but on a straight stretch surrounded by mountains, we saw a car about 300 meters away. My husband turned off his high beams, but suddenly the car disappeared. It was gone. I know it sounds crazy, but I swear we saw the lights suddenly go out, and there was no car. Nothing. We thought it might have gone down a dirt road, but there weren't any. Just mountains. In fact, before we realized it had disappeared, we thought we couldn't see it because of a change in the road's gradient or something, but it just vanished. When I realized it, I didn't say anything. I just stared straight ahead in shock. And my husband said to me, "Did you see that? Or did you see what I saw?" The car disappeared. I looked at him, and I swear, I got a huge chill. In fact, the whole way there, I kept looking in the rearview mirrors. I've always been a bit superstitious about the paranormal, but that really got me thinking, how the heck did a car disappear right in front of me? And that's where that one ends. So, uh, look at the chat here, but the chat there, but yeah, that's a fascinating one. And there's so many accounts of that. People seeing either solid cars or transparent or translucent cars that then vanish, or they just see the headlights of a car. And now what I wonder, when they just see the headlights of a car, are they really the headlights of a car or a vehicle? Or are they just lights that are moving on their own in the same place you would see them for a vehicle? And then of course they just vanish as well. It doesn't say here whether they saw a car, I don't believe exactly. It sounds like they saw the lights more than anything else, and then they just vanished. But I always wonder when it comes to these sightings, and there's no specification of whether or not they saw a solid, they saw the shape of a vehicle or just the lights. What is going on there? Are they just seeing lights? And then if that's the case, then are they really the headlights of a vehicle? So a lot of anomalies, though, to do with that and with roads and with sightings of anomalous things, vehicles, or just lights that seem to be coming from vehicles that appear and vanish. And this is all over the world, as you see here, because this is coming from Spain. So, and the writer got verification because they didn't say anything, but their husband did. So, really fascinating. I'm wondering, again, what was going on there. history of the road. It's fascinating too when you have these things happen in places where whatever the people see, it can't go anywhere. Uh, Especially in this case where there's mountains, so a vehicle will be driving up the side of a mountain to get off of the road. It's one thing if it's fields or things like that. I'm maybe as a very skeptical person could say, well, someone just drove off into a yard or into the a field or something. But when you have mountains on either side of a road, uh, that's fascinating because that's pretty difficult to get off of the road. It seems anyway. Um, when you have those surroundings. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, I hope this is the proper place to post this. I had a strange experience in the early hours this morning. I went to sleep around 10 p.m. last night. I woke up feeling well rested and figured it was nearly time to get up. I checked my phone and it was 2:26 a.m. I thought about getting up, but I didn't want to disturb anyone else, so I went back to sleep. Again, I woke up feeling very refreshed, and I checked the time, 1:11 a.m. This time I got up and checked the actual clock to make sure my phone wasn't being weird or something, but it was correct. I was a little bit scared to go back to sleep again, but eventually I did. And when I woke up again, it was to my alarm. Has this sort of thing happened to anyone else? Or any possible explanations? I don't think I just dreamt of looking at my phone the first time. And that's where that one ends. Barring something like daylight savings time, and depending on where this person lives, that whole crazy practice that we do here in the U.S., large parts of the U.S. does, I have no idea for sure what they experienced. Again, it's another possible time anomaly. Unless they were just completely mistaken about what they saw on their phone. Maybe it was 12, whatever it was, instead of 2. But again, I don't like to sort of discount people's experiences and figure they made mistakes all the time, because I don't think people make mistakes all the darn time. And yet, often yes, but when something anomalous happens, it seems like people often really consider what happened and try to remember and put down all the information they can, or get the details right, and just, I don't know, I have a hard time dismissing everyone just because of possibilities of mistakes, when I don't think we make mistakes 24/7. But that's just me. But it is weird. I do wonder about, again, time anomalies and how that works. Again, going to sleep. Is there something in that when you're asleep, or is it more, I don't know, easier to have anomalous things happen outside of just dreams? I'm not sure. But moving on to the next one here. This one says, there we go. I kid you not, this just happened to me. I got back from a sleepover with my friend, and I emptied out my bag in my room and sat down on my bed. My door was closed. After a few minutes, I saw my bedsheet move from the corner of my eye. I didn't think anything of it until I caught it doing it twice. I said, B, you're not slick. B is my cat, and she's not allowed in my room, but she will sneak under the duvet covers sometimes. It's cute. Anyways, the movement stopped. It started again, and I tapped the cover to let her know I knew she was there. I didn't feel anything, so I pulled back my duvet. There was nothing there. I checked inside the cover. Nothing there. I smacked my bedsheets in case it was a fat bug I couldn't see. I didn't feel anything, but better safe than sorry. So obviously I wasn't about to sit in a room with a demon. I'm wondering about that. The tone of their post here is very much sort of has a lot of humor in it, so I wonder if they really thought it was a demon or not. But anyway, I texted my mom because she was at work, and she called me. I was freaking out. She laughed and told me she had that happen sometimes too. I didn't know what was bloody funny about a ghost in our house. And I say my cat, Spirit, but no cat has died here. We have 3. They're all healthy. It's probably harmless, but I'm more angry. Did I miss a line? No? Okay. Uh, but I'm more angry it chose me to haunt. I'm changing my bed sheets. I do not care. Mom said it had been happening for a while. I remember a similar story she told me. A similar story she told to mine, but I thought she made it up because it was dark. Ghost cat from my mom makes movements on her bed. I apologized in this general area, and they mentioned the form there, for smacking it, but at the same time, it shouldn't have been invading my house. That's just bad manners. That's how the post ends. So, obviously, again, very interesting writing style there. But that is fascinating. You have this experience of a bump beneath the sheets that is there and then gone, and sort of like a cat or an animal would do. And the person having the experience texts one of their relatives that lives in the house, their mom there, and turns out the mom had the same experience. I don't know. It's one thing to sort of have the experience where it's walking on the bed where you can tell it's a cat. When there's something moving around under the sheets, I don't know if I'd like that or not. But it is also something the cats will do. Luckily, I haven't had that so much with Logan, my cat, but I've heard of people having that experience with living cats, I might add. I'm talking about just actual, currently alive, existing cats. So it makes sense then that if it is the ghost or spirit or soul of a cat, that it might do that again to get attention. I don't know. It's really an odd thing, but it's amazing too that these 2 people, mother and their child, or I'm guessing an adult child, but these 2 people in the same house had the same experiences and didn't know until the second person had the experience and told the first. And that's when they found out. And then they remembered the first person telling them about it, but they had just thought they were making it up. So, anyway, just a fascinating story there about experiences that 2 people had in the same place. So let's get on to the next one here. This one says, about 3 years ago, I remember seeing a woman who stood out a lot to me. She was very tall, very pale, and had high bangs. What disturbed me was her eyes. They didn't look normal to me at all. They appeared completely pitch black and larger than what I remember as average human eyes. She never spoke to anyone and always seemed quiet and distant. The way her eyes looked made me uncomfortable, and I started paying more attention to her after that. Then one day she was just gone. I never saw her again, and don't remember anyone mentioning her leaving or transferring. So I'm guessing this is some kind of work environment. It felt sudden and strange. I don't know if this was lighting, contacts, a medical condition, or my memory changing over time, but the image of her eyes has stayed with me for years. I'm curious if anyone else has experienced something similar or has a possible explanation. And that's where that one ends. So I've heard there are contacts that have been made that are completely black, but the problem is that they're completely black, then you're not going to be seeing through them. And I've also heard they are not comfortable to wear either. And what I'm really curious about is the other people. So was this person the only one that saw this woman's eyes as being black? Or did others see it too? But then if everyone else saw it, then you would think someone would, outside of the, not in their presence, but elsewhere, would say or would contact everyone else, and there'd be talk about it to some degree. I'm really just curious, is that because this one person was sensitive enough to pick up on that? The fact that maybe there was something different about this individual with these black eyes? So in other words, did this person's eyes appear normal to everyone else? And I've heard of people seeing other people around them where they look normal, but then they look like almost like a shadow figure, but with like sharp teeth and like evil looking face and eyes. And they look that way for a second, and then they look normal again. So I'm just curious again what the situation was here with this person. Were they picking up on something about this woman that no one else was? Because it sounds like she didn't do anything in that environment that would have caused alarm to anyone else. Whatever that was, I'm guessing a work, maybe possibly school, some kind of college environment. I'm not sure, but either way, it doesn't sound like she did anything that would have made anyone else wonder what was going on with her. So that really does raise a lot of questions there. And of course, there are so many accounts in recent years and probably throughout time as well, I'm guessing, even though I haven't looked into it, of people that appear that have these pitch black eyes. A lot of times it's children, but there are cases of adults as well, like this one. And this sounds like it was someone that was in this environment several times that this person who wrote this post saw and then wasn't there anymore. So really is anomalous, and like I said, the fact that nothing else happened makes me wonder, makes me think and suspect that no one else saw this person in the same way that the writer of this post did. So I don't know. I think we've done a show on the whole black-eyed children and black-eyed. Yeah, we did a show on that a while ago. Jen and I did at one point. Gets hard to remember all these shows after a while, but yeah. So moving on to the next one here. This one says, my boyfriend was driving us home at about 9 p.m. We live in a very small town in central Maine. The roads are very dark and surrounded by woods. There was a car about 5 car lengths ahead of us, and I was turned around in the front seat, giving our daughter a snack. My boyfriend said, "What the heck is that?" I turned around quickly because of the urgency in his voice. When I turned around, I saw a very large black dog with a red collar in the middle of the road. Its eyes were about halfway up the windshield, and there was no light reflecting off of them. It was moving very fast at us, but didn't look like it was running. My boyfriend swerved into the other lane. There was no oncoming traffic. As soon as we would have passed it, I looked over, and it just vanished. The car ahead of us didn't swerve or show any indication there was anything in the road. This thing just appeared between us and the car ahead of us. My boyfriend, so it goes into my boyfriend's perspective. He saw 2 glowing eyes at his eye level approaching us fast. They vanished, and that's when he said, "What the heck is that?" He thought it was a person in the road, right behind the car ahead of us. Then it reappeared in front of us. He said when it reappeared, it looked like a massive, hairless, pitch-black canine running directly towards the car in the middle of the road. This is when he swerved, and when he looked back, the thing was gone again. We both feel very uneasy about this. We tried to rationalize it at first, but couldn't think of anything logical. We're very skeptical people about stuff like this. There is no way an animal of that size could have gotten in the road that quickly without the car in front of us showing any indication of this creature. My boyfriend is a very adventurous person, and has spent a lot of time in the woods. He said nothing has ever given him this feeling before. Any idea what we saw? And that's where that one ends. So it's really odd. It seems like they both saw different things, but around the same time. And because the boyfriend didn't mention the collar on the dog, like the writer that did there. But either way, the whole experience, I mean, sounds like it almost caused an accident, which is terrifying. But, and then of course, whatever it was vanished, didn't get off the road, as far as what they were able to tell there. It was just gone. There and gone, there and gone again. So, and it may seem odd that two people in the same situation didn't see the same thing, but it actually is not quite that uncommon. I've come across and I've heard stories of experiences where two or three people were in the same place and all saw different things when they were looking in the same direction, and even got different senses of the intent or the nature of what they were seeing, where one person sensed it was a very positive being, whatever it was, and another person got the complete opposite feeling. So these kinds of experiences, they don't always track the same with everyone. And again, how or why does that work? I don't know. But other than just different people have different maybe abilities or levels of sensitivity or types of it, I'm not sure. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, I'm very new to this forum and not sure if I'm doing this right. Please let me correct me if I'm not posting right. But I remember around 2018 or 2019 being outside late at night, around 2 to 4 a.m. in the dead of winter. Yes, I know, that's a dumb choice, but I wasn't mentally well. This happened in the upper parts of Appalachia around the middle of December. I was outside at about 2 a.m. while feeding the deer that I had fed for years at that point. It was quiet, no one on the roads, no porch lights on, but I like to take pictures of the deer and the snow falling, and so I wanted to do that. I pulled out my phone, which had full battery and no malfunctions before this. It wouldn't turn on, no matter what I did. When I was trying to turn my phone on, I remember stopping everything and looking to the road. This road has a massive hill that you can't see over, so regardless, I couldn't see it. But I heard ice cream truck music. However, it was incredibly slow and sometimes sounded like it skipped some notes, or as if it was being scratched. It was so slow, and so was the vehicle. I was so horrified, I couldn't move for a good bit, and the vehicle was still moving. I'd say about, this is just guessing, 8 to 10 miles per hour. After running inside and locking the doors and making sure all curtains were closed and lights were off, I heard it go down the road by my house, still incredibly slowly. I didn't move from my hiding spot for about 10 minutes until it was fully gone. My phone also finally turned back on once the vehicle was gone. Has anyone heard or seen or experienced this? There was never anything in the news or articles. Closest thing to an experience I found was on a website that had the same, where someone had the same thing happen to them. But the posts were pretty dead on that website, and that's where that one ends. It sounds almost like, because if you think about ice cream trucks and the music they play, at least in some cases, it's almost like a music box. And sometimes they play similar songs in some cases. But the odd thing to me is the feeling the person got. Because if you hear an ice cream truck, like the music from an ice cream truck, well, okay, it may be unusual for one to be in the area, but it's probably just an ice cream truck. Even if the sound is a bit weird, well, okay, maybe the recording is messed up. In other words, the the way that the person reacted, the way they felt hearing this, is odd. Yeah, it could have been a mimic, possibly. There's also, and as I always find this fascinating, there is the fact that their phone was not working. And you get this in some other cases too, where there's this anomalous thing that happens to people, whether it's a sighting or they hear a sound, uh, and at the same time, their phone or their radio in their vehicle, their devices around them, will not work properly, if at all. So it's like there's some kind of energy around them uh, that is causing their devices to not work. And possibly then does that mean it's also the same thing that is making the apparition or the sound? And which is, it's basically all one experience, even though it just seems like an odd problem with your devices, which, yes, devices have problems. But whenever they're having problems at the same time as other actual paranormal experiences, as far as people can tell, to me, that's all connected. How it works, I don't know. But it all seems to be connected, and you find this over and over again if you look into all these accounts of experiences. So it really is fascinating, and that goes with reportedly that goes with UFO sightings. That goes with cryptids in some cases. When people come across creatures, sometimes their electronics won't work, or their vehicles. That goes with, again, orbs. That goes with apparitions, and again, like this post here, that goes with sounds. It's just something, and that's a lot of different sort of phenomenon to have happening that are somewhat different, or seem somewhat different, but then they all have this effect, it seems like, on technology at times. Yeah, so I really am fascinated by this intersection of, again, paranormal and electronics. And we did a whole show on that a little while back, and it was a lot of fun. I definitely recommend checking that out. A few weeks ago, we did the show on that. So, yeah, I'm not sure what else to say on that, just that it is, it sounds like they had an anomalous experience. And, I mean, if the phone hadn't been messed up at the same time, then maybe I could see possibly writing the whole thing off as someone just got really freaked out by the weird sound of a bad recording, and so they wanted to get away from it. Even though it still is odd that if there was that messed up for that long, why would anyone use a recording that's that messed up? But anyway, moving on to the next one here. This one says, I think the new trailer I'm staying at is haunted. It's 10 at night, and most, if not all, the residents are all in their homes by now. I heard what sounded like paper shuffling in the back, or walking. I'm guessing they mean backyard. Then I heard what sounded like a little girl's voice humming for a few seconds. Then after I called it out, it stopped. I've been sitting here for the last 15 minutes, trying to hear something, and nothing happened. But there have been multiple times where I've heard footsteps, even though there's no one else in the house at all. I do feel a presence, but it doesn't feel harmful. There was a little girl who used to live here in the bedroom, because when I was moving in, I came across a child's movie-themed blanket and a few dolls, and her name is also written on the door. I don't know. I'm just really freaked out after hearing it. I randomly hear footsteps sometimes, but not all the time. I've only been in this trailer for 3 days, and I've heard what sounds like feet shuffling multiple times. It could just be the wind, since there are cracks in the windows, but distinctly it sounded like a child humming, and that's where that one ends. It is fascinating. I had there's been a couple times here where I've heard, at least once anyway, where I heard a man humming just for a second or two and then stopped. So, not sure what that's about, but possible residual of a previous tenant. I'm not sure. With that one, I don't know. I feel like when you're hearing footsteps that often, you get to sort of recognize the sound of footsteps versus maybe the sound of wind going through your home. Uh, and that's a lot to be happening. That if you look at all the times they mentioned they heard things in their place there, but they've only been there 3 days. That's a lot of possible activity there. I also find it fascinating that they heard the humming, and then when they called out to the whatever it was, it stopped. Almost like what I wonder is, was it someone there, uh, some other consciousness, not realizing that they would be heard by this new person that just moved in, and of course until this person called them out, and so that's why they stopped. It's always fascinating. I wonder how often is it not necessarily a spirit or a soul? How often is it some sort of, just with the humming, I'm thinking in this case, could be other things too, but how often is it more of like a time anomaly? In other words, did this little girl who lived in that room one day hear someone call out after she was humming, and it freaked her out? In other words, these two people freaked each other out without meaning to because of some weird time anomaly. So always a possibility there. I think. I think not to say that there can't be mimics or there can't be obviously souls or spirits that are around sometimes, but there are just so many other things that I think it could be when it comes to all this paranormal activity that people experience. Let's see here. Moving on to the next one here. We have two more for the night. I think we'll end after two more. This next one says, I started working 2 weeks ago on nights at a facility for people with intellectual disabilities. Today, at 3 a.m., I was doing my rounds to check if everything was all right. I do rounds every hour. All the residents were asleep, as usual. As I was closing the door of one hallway, the door of another hallway made a noise as if someone was pushing it from the other side. The door was closed. I was surprised and stared at the door, and it was doing the same thing again. I thought one of the residents was trying to open the door, so I opened it and spoke as if it were a resident, but there was nothing and nobody there. I moved away from the door, and it happened again. I went to find my coworker, who came with me to check. The door didn't make any noise or anything. Then I went back to patrol at 4 a.m., and it did it again. The first time was quite a lot, and I ran away. I'm not saying it's something paranormal, but it was very strange, and that's where that one ends. I wonder if, since it is sort of a medical facility, is that part of why there's activity going on there? Even if it was not the same thing as what it is now, especially maybe in that case. It's hard to say. But yeah, doors, there's so much activity with doors and doorways. And so I wonder if someone was trying to get the attention of the people there. Maybe just of this one person, because it didn't happen again when they brought their coworker. So could it have happened with them? Or was it something that was only meant for this one person? Yeah, yep, it could be. Matt's all in the chat says night security must be a hard job. That could be, I think, in certain cases. So, last one for the night here. It's a good sized one. It's not a real short one, so good place to end. This one says, I remember this very weakly, but one time our house had a blackout. I think it was around 5 p.m. already. My mom was there, but she was about to go out. And so she called one of the neighbor's kids to babysit us. He was basically me and my siblings' honorary big brother. Anyways, we were bored as heck. It was the early to mid 2010s in the Philippines, and we had no real entertainment, especially at that time of night. It was already getting dark. We were sitting around candles when M, the big brother, decided to play a game, circling a piece of paper on top of a candle in order to etch an image with smoke. I am slightly struggling to remember the order we went in, but I think it was M who went first. He got nothing, just a circle of smoke on a ripped notebook page. And then I remember myself going. And when I did this, such a detailed image of a woman or girl appeared. It definitely wasn't me making something out of nothing, because all of us were screaming. I dropped the paper out of sheer fear, and it started burning. It drifted under our couch, but thankfully went out. It was like a warning shot not to try something like this again. Our whole house could have burned down, and that's where that one ends. That's a fascinating one, and it sounds like if people are going around in a circle with this paper, you would just get a circle. So there was something, it seems like it was going on, some kind of weird interaction between the flame and the charring or the burning of the paper, that it seems like some force or some intelligence maybe manipulated everything to make some kind of image. And I'm glad as well that nothing burned down, nothing really caught on fire other than the paper. So yeah, I do wonder if they're right about that. Was it a warning, or was it someone trying to make contact with the people there? And unfortunately, it worked, but it freaked them out, and so it sort of backfired in a way. Didn't really get any kind of communication going. I always wonder about that. How often do souls or spirits or other consciousness try to interact with people, try to get communication going, to get a message across, and because of whatever you're doing, it freaks people out, and they don't want anything to do with anything that you're doing anymore. How frustrating that must be. So, yeah, I was gonna say, regarding the night security, I every so often I come across posts from people that do work in that profession, and I'm sure it's not every person that does that comes across paranormal things, but I have shared some accounts over the years here on the show. But yeah, anything at night. But yeah, security. Well, because you have to go around, you have to go and do your rounds of wherever you're at, and if it's any kind of a hospital or medical facility, or any kind of a school, any kind of a hotel, there's a lot that's been going on there. And so it really is, it seems like if there's going to be paranormal activity, then you're going to experience it if you're doing that, if you're going around a place basically every so often. So, but yeah, that is going to do it for tonight for this show. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.